How we doing, everybody? Dommy, Gunn, Ricci from the Who-Bangin Sports Talk Studios in New York City. I'm Dommy Gunn. How's everybody doing today? We're going to go over some Super Bowl trends. Maybe we can hit a couple of bets. Maybe some of this stuff will help you guys out. You know, trends sometimes are our friends until they're not. So let's go over a couple. I found some interesting ones. Pouring over a couple different publications. One was VSiN, Vegas Sports and Information Network. I got some from CBS Sportsline. I looked a little bit on covers. I got some information from, I'm a big sports talk radio guy in the car, so I'm always listening to WFAN in New York more than any other station. So I got some stuff from them. So let me shout out a couple of the regulars that I try to get some information. And like I said, sometimes trends are our friends. In a game like this, you know, a Super Bowl game where, you know, things happen, fluky things go on. We, you know, I like to, you know, to take a different approach in games like this. I'm not a big side player in the Super Bowl. I'm a big totals player anyhow in football, but during the Super Bowl, I'm always looking at player props. Another thing I don't do during the year. I'm looking at, you know, totals, looking at maybe some nice teasers that I do like to do during the NFL season. So NFL for me, I take a different approach than other sports that I bet. But anyhow, I found some of these trends. Hopefully they'll help you guys out. Let's hit. There's not that many. Let's hit them quickly and see. You know, like again, maybe something will spark something in your brain, and hopefully you'll hit something. So let's go with it. Let's go quickly from the first one. The team with the better record going into the Super Bowl is 30-20 straight up all time, which is a great record until you find out that 12 of the last 14 have lost ATS. And since 2004, there's been on a 1-16 skid against the spread. So the team that won did not cover and you know, every time. The one game that I do remember is the Bengals were a 6-point underdog, and they did not cover but one. That was what, 22 or 23, 22, I believe. So that was one of those games. But anyhow, the again, the team with the better record going into the game is 30-20 straight up, but has lost 12 of the last 14 against the spread. The outright winner is 48-7-3 against the spread, almost an 88% clip in all Super Bowls combined. You know, a lot of Super Bowls there really are, you know, like this one, -1, -1.5. So there's a good chance that this year that trend might hold up also, that the outright winner does cover. But again, that one game recently was that Bengal game. So other than that, you know, it hasn't happened. Underdogs in the Super Bowl on a 17-6 against the spread record. In the last 23 years, they've held that edge, which is like a 74%, 75% win rate. They've been on a 13-4 against the spread run in the last 17. So the underdogs have are 13-4 against the spread in the last 17. If you remember, the Chiefs in the last two were exactly 1.5-point underdogs. I guess always you got to take always as a caveat what line you got. Maybe your line closed at 1, maybe it closed at 2. But in general, the overall consensus was the closing line was a 1.5-point underdog. And this year now it's the Eagles. It's reversed. The Eagles are so we'll see if the trend reverses, if the game reverses, we'll see what happens. But the Chiefs have won as the underdog, and now the Eagles are the underdog. And I'll tell you, more so than not, when it comes to on paper, like I put in quotes on paper, the Eagles do have some edges in a bunch of different categories in this game, which is kind of interesting. Again, if you just went by stats, you know, we'd all be rich. So obviously, there's a lot more variables than just stats. Next one I got for you: the team that allowed the fewer points per game during the regular season, so not the playoffs, just the regular season. Teams that allowed the fewer points per game have gone 8-1 straight up and 7-2 against the spread. So that's almost a 78%, 79% clip in the last 9 Super Bowl games. So since what, 2015, 2014, the team with the fewer points per game held up 8-1 straight up, 7-2 against the spread. This year, Philadelphia allowed the fewer points than Kansas City in the regular season. Philly 17.8 per game to Kansas City's 19.2. So that trend favors the Eagles. The team that generated more yardage offensively overall in the regular season doesn't hold an edge. They're 2-11 straight up and 1-2 against the spread in the last 13 Super Bowls. So dating back, the last 13, 1-2, 1-12 against the spread, which is like less than 8%. The team that generated the most yardage overall did not have the edge. Philadelphia does hold the edge significantly this past season, holding a 367.2 yards per game to the Chiefs' 327.6 yards per game. So that category favors the Chiefs. Here's one for us, guys. The bettors, we get one. 67% hit against the spread. We're winning. As the bettors, we're winning 67% of the time in the last 18 Super Bowls when we moved the line on the total. So when we moved the line up or down, closing line, the bettors have a 67% win rate. Technically, it says 66.7, but hell, we take that 66%, 67% every time, right? And twice on Sunday. So keep that one in mind. In-game statistics. These four categories I've seen a lot of different guys that do a lot of power rankings. I don't do my own, but guys that I follow that do their own power rankings, that do their own, come up a lot of these trends and, are, considered the pros in certain for certain publications, like a Steve Macklin at VSiN, who's a guy who's very, very knowledgeable, a guy I love to shout out, and a guy I follow a lot because real smart capper. And, one thing about VSiN, they do their core is about sports betting. So everything they talk about, is under the course of sports gambling and sports betting. So that's why I like their information, and I find that it holds up pretty well overall. Even in different sports. I like them a lot in baseball. I don't really follow them too much in college basketball, but and in football, I do, because in NFL football, you need all the help you can get, especially the way this NFL's been going lately. But let's get back to some of the trends I got. The four categories I was talking about, the four key offensive categories: rushing yards and passing yards per attempt, and turnovers and time of possession. We all know turnovers and time of possession is big in every sport and handicapping. Baseball, basketball, football, hockey, time of possession. Well, not really hockey with time of possession, but I guess so. But turnovers, and is huge. Time of possession don't really come into play that, in baseball as really a category like it does in basketball and football. But, turnovers, things like that are always big. So with those four categories, when the teams that have that are dominating at least three of those four categories, they're 40-6 straight up and 36-9 against the spread, which is like 80%. And the Eagles this year, this category favors the Eagles because not only are they winning three out of those four categories, they're winning all four this year. And they are number one in football all over in NFL this year. They're ranked number one in time of possession total. So there's no team that had controlled the ball more than the Philadelphia Eagles this year. They're ahead in rushing yards per attempt, passing yards per attempt, and turnovers. So if going on that trend, they have an 80% chance of covering the spread. Here's what I like, and this one I got straight from VSiN because it's about teasers. Now, who else talks about teasers, 6-point teasers, and has information about it? Looking back I'm going to just read this quote right from the source. Looking back at the last 23 Super Bowls in terms of 6-point teaser trends, underdogs are 20-3, 87%. So what does that tell you? That means that when you're using the teaser for the underdog, again, the Eagles, they're plus 1.5. you could take them up to a 7.5. You're going past that 3 and 7 key number. That's, to me, is a favorable teaser line. I kind of like to tease. I would, just thinking about it as I'm talking, I would think that the Eagles and the over, even though a lot of unders are being bet, and the under is a trend in this game when it's in the 40s. I kind of like over, because the total is 48.5, right? So if you took the Eagles to a set plus 7.5, and you took the total over, say 42.5, that sounds pretty favorable to me. But anyhow, the team, looking back at the last 23 Super Bowls, 6-point teaser, the underdogs are 20-3, 87%. An underdog 6-point tease, like we said, using the Eagles would be pretty favorable. In that 23 game span that we're talking about with these teasers, the favorites are 13-10 against the spread. So that's the discrepancy, and that's where you get the 23 where the underdogs have won. So again, favors the Eagles in this one, in that category. Since 1979, boy, that was that's 22 years old. There have been 28 teams to hit the 30-point mark in the Super Bowl. Their record, 25-3 straight up and 24-4 against the spread. I'm just going to read this thing straight from VSiN. In 2023, Philadelphia put up 35 points, the most ever for a losing team. Don't let that memory tarnish what has been a prolific trend. Scoring 30 points has been proving huge in the big game. For what it's worth, the 32 points the Chiefs put up against the AFC title game last week were the highest of all season. They didn't put up more than those points all year long. The Eagles this year have hit 30-plus points on 7 occasions. Both teams allowed 30-plus points 2 times. So the Eagles on defense and the Chiefs on defense have allowed the 30 points twice. The Eagles have scored over 30 points more than the Chiefs have scored this year. And the 32 points the Chiefs have scored this year was last week, was the highest they've gone. Again, the team to hit the 30-point mark in the Super Bowl since 1979, 24-4 against the spread. So those are the trends I got for you. Hopefully somebody else helped you out. Another thing I found out was a couple of different bets that seem to be what people like to bet a lot in Super Bowls. One thing is the overtime prop. The overtime prop seems to be a sexy bet that people like to play. But if you notice that, let's see, there have been going overtime is not something that happens often. So before you put down that bet, listen to this. Let me read this for you. Overtime is one of the biggest prop bets for Super Bowl Sundays. It's but don't think just because 2 of the best teams in the league, it'd be easy to go over into overtime. And with a point spread like that, like we have, it would favor maybe going into overtime. It doesn't. Right now, a line of plus 1,100 on yes for overtime, which was on DraftKings as of yesterday, carries an implied probability of winning a little bit over 8%. Okay, but what they're giving you is not that kind of. It does not add up. The line they're giving you for the yes does not add up. The no, and even when you go to a lot of prop bets, the minus on that prop bet is more closer to the win probability that you would have than the plus. The plus, they always inflate towards the bookie side. So you got to keep that in mind. There was a reason why the no is priced much higher than the yes. It happened last year. The Super Bowl line was close, but that doesn't mean history will repeat itself. For your information, 272 regular season NFL games this year, 16 went into overtime. That's less than 6% of the games. If we include the 12 postseason games, none that went into overtime. That brings it down from 6% to almost 5.5%. big deal, right? But my point is the overtime is not where you want to go in this game as far as it's like a hunch, but it's a coin flip. Like the anytime first touchdown score, that's a coin flip. OT, that's a coin flip. So those are kind of things you got. Even though they sound nice, they sound great. That doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen. The last few Super Bowls, as far as totals, last Super Bowl went under. Super Bowl 57 went over, but mostly there's been unders in over the last 10 Super Bowls. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 out of the last 10 Super Bowls that went under the total. So that's something else to keep in mind. Another thing that I thought was interesting is the defensive coordinator for the Eagles, Vic Fangio. Vic has not had, and not only with the Eagles when he was with his other teams, he has not had success at all with Patrick Mahomes. He's 0-8 versus Patrick Mahomes as a defensive coordinator. The Chiefs just seem to know how to step it up during Super Bowl. But this one could be different. We'll see what happens. They go for that three-peat. If you guys haven't heard, and I'll close with this, if you haven't heard about the Pat Riley saga with him owning the trademark for the three-peat, the Kansas City Chiefs, if they do win that game, they're going to have to pay, or the NFL is going to have to pay Pat Riley to use that three-peat. I seen a quote from Brett Musburger, a legendary and one of the founding members of VSiN, and he's a legendary gambler, legendary New York sportscaster and gambler from New York Sports Better, a legendary guy I always follow, a guy I really like. He put it perfectly. If the Chiefs do win, Pat Riley might be able to buy another basketball team in T-shirt sales alone. So keep that in mind. I think 7 or 8 different lawsuits have been put against him in trademark court, and he's won every one of them. And I believe the NFL took a shot at going against him. I guess it's cheaper hiring lawyers than having to pay the whatever the royalty or however they work it out is with this three-peat. But I'll tell you, the Pat Riley also kind of did with that three-peat. He used different variations of the word, so nobody can kind of, he did it like THRE-PEAT, and then he did a couple different variations, so somebody couldn't get slick with that. So keep that in mind too. But anyhow, Super Bowl Sunday should be good. We're going to be back on Saturday, 11 a.m. like we do every Saturday morning for our college basketball picks. And of course, this week we'll definitely go into our Super Bowl picks. I'm still working on some of mine. I got some props working, and we'll throw in a couple teasers. We'll have some special guests and see if we can hone in a little bit more on the Super Bowl for the game on Sunday. Our picks on Saturday on the college basketball we got next. We're doing pretty good. So hopefully we keep up the trend and could give you some more winners for that. So until then, this is Dommy Gunn reaching for Who-Bangin Sports Talk. We'll be back, like I said, Saturday. We're live. But hopefully you guys have a good Super Bowl and cash those tickets.